Most people only remember 4 words when life falls apart. They forget them completely when life is good. That's the half that cost them everything. There is a man whose life changed more than once. Not slowly, the way most of us expect change to come, but suddenly, completely, without warning. Rich, then ruined, then rich again, then gone. And through every single turn, he said the same 4 words. By the end of this story, those 4 words are going to mean something completely different to you than they do right now. A tired traveler arrives at a village after a long, exhausting journey. His feet are sore, his stomach is empty, and all he needs is a meal and a place to rest. He starts asking the people he passes. One family says their house is too small. Another says they have barely enough for themselves. But they all point him in the same direction. They tell him to find a man named John. So the traveler follows the road and asks a few more villagers along the way. And here's where it gets interesting, because these villagers don't just know John. They tell the traveler that John is one of the richest men in the entire area. The second richest man around is someone named Harry. And the traveler thinks, well, a rich man probably won't turn away a stranger. He finds John's land. At the moment he arrives, something catches him off guard. John doesn't just tolerate him, he welcomes him. Genuinely, warmly, completely. The table is full. The bed is comfortable. John's family moves around the house with a kind of ease that has nothing to do with showing off. It just feels like who they are. These are people who are rich in every sense of the word. And when the time comes to leave, the traveler is grateful. He turns to John and says, "You should feel so blessed. You're such a rich man." John smiles and says something the traveler doesn't quite understand. He says, "Nothing stays the same. Sometimes what appears is not reality. This too shall pass." The traveler walks away, turning those words over in his mind. What does that mean? You're wealthy. Your family is healthy. Your land is full. What exactly is going to pass? He doesn't have an answer, so he carries the question with him. And life keeps moving. Years go by. The road eventually curves back toward the same region, and the traveler decides to look for John again. He asks around, and this time the villagers' faces shift. They say yes, that John, he's had a terrible time. He lost everything. The floods came through last season and wiped out his animals, destroyed his land, made the soil useless. And now John works for Harry. The man who was once the richest in the area is now working for the second richest. The traveler finds John, and the change is visible. Older, worn clothes, a small hut instead of a thriving home. But when John forces the traveler to sit and eat, because he absolutely insists, there is still something recognizable in him, something unbroken. As the traveler gets up to leave, he tells John how sorry he is, how unfair it all seems. And John looks at him and says, "Don't worry, this too shall pass." The traveler is confused all over again. Last time, John was rich and said it. Now John has nothing and says it. What is this man actually seeing that everyone else is missing? He keeps wandering. More roads, more seasons, more years. And eventually the path brings him back one more time. He asks about John, and the news hits him like a wave. Harry had passed away. He had no family, no one to leave anything to. And so he left everything, the house, the land, the animals, all of it, to his faithful worker, his old friend, John. The traveler rushes to find him, and there is John, living in Harry's grand house, surrounded by vast land, and more animals than he could count. The richest man in the area, again. The traveler grabs his hands, laughing, telling him how happy he is, how incredible this is. And John, calm as ever, says the same thing. This too shall pass. Now the traveler finally starts to understand. This is not pessimism. John is not a man who expects things to fall apart. He is a man who has learned something rare, that life doesn't hold still, not for grief, not for glory. This too shall pass reflects the temporary nature of the human condition, that neither the negative nor the positive moments in life ever indefinitely last. John had lived it. He wasn't just quoting wisdom. He was wearing it. And here is the part of this story that most people never think about. It is easy to find comfort in those 4 words when you're going through hardship and trouble. The real lesson, however, L-eyes in remembering them also during the good and happy times. When John was rich, he said it. When John was poor, he said it. When John was rich again, he said it. He was not attached to any version of his life, and that is exactly why none of them could destroy him. This too shall pass is an adage of Persian origin about impermanence, and its general sentiment is found in wisdom literature throughout history and across cultures. Sufi poets wrote about it, King Solomon is said to have had it inscribed on a ring, and Abraham Lincoln quoted it in a speech. The fact that this notion has appeared so many times in wisdom traditions that have no apparent connection to one another speaks to the eternal truth of its message. But knowing the phrase and actually living by it are two very different things. John lived by it. A few more years pass, and the traveler goes looking for John one last time. This time, the villagers lead him up a hill, and at the top, there's a gravestone. John is gone. The traveler stands there quietly, reading the inscription carved into the stone. This too shall pass. He almost laughs, but then he feels something heavier settle in. He looks at the grave and thinks, what part of death passes? Death is the end. What could possibly come after this? He leaves without an answer, but he comes back the following year to visit the grave, because some questions pull you back, even when you don't know why. He climbs the hill, and when he reaches the top, he stops. The grave is gone. A flood had come through and washed the entire hilltop away. Not a stone, not a trace, nothing left. Even the gravestone that said, "This too shall pass," had passed. And that is when it lands, fully. Finally, everything is temporary. The good years and the hard years, the wealth and the loss, the memories and the markers we leave behind, even the reminders themselves don't last forever. The phrase is literally true at any given moment when it is uttered, since that moment of remembering, too, will pass. John understood that, and it made him unshakable. Not because he didn't feel things, but because he never confused a moment for a permanent truth. So here is what actually changed from the beginning of this story to the end. The traveler came looking for food and a bed. He left with something that took years to fully understand. He watched a man go from rich to poor, to rich to gone. And through all of it, the man was at peace. Not because his life was easy, because he knew how life works. The question worth sitting with is this: which version of "this too shall pass" are you using right now? Are you using it as a lifeline when things are hard, but forgetting it completely when things are good? Because the people who carry it in both directions, in the good seasons and the painful ones, those are the people who move through life the way John did. Grounded, grateful, unafraid of what comes next. If this story made you think, drop a comment below and tell me which part hit you hardest. Was it John losing everything, or the gravestone disappearing at the end? I genuinely want to read what you think, and if you know someone who is going through a hard season right now, share this with them. Sometimes 4 words from the right story at the right moment is exactly what a person needs to hear. There's another story on this channel that pairs with this one, in a way that might surprise you, is waiting for you right now. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you there.